Greetings, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today we're going to continue our book study on the Cosmic Doctrine. This will be session number 8. So, prepare yourselves to receive some cosmic downloads. Let's get right into it. Shout out to all my favorite people in the universe. Peace and greetings. Good to see you again, as always. So, despite technical difficulties and everything else, we persist. Let's get through it. How do you turn this thing around? There we go. Positively. So, I believe we stopped off around chapter 23. But since I took the last week off, we're gonna do a quick recap of 21, 22, and then dive into 23. How's that sound? How does that sound? I'm pretty sure the technical difficulty is part of my personal energetic algorithm. Perhaps it's a way to help me to appreciate the seriousness of the work. Or maybe it's an attempt to help me not be so serious. Either way, I think it is a recurring character in this show, for sure. So, once again, peace and greetings to all my favorite people. Kennard, peace, peace. My Gnosis, peace and greetings, my bro. Glad to see you being consistent. Sirius Suit 888, peace and greetings. Monica Lawan, peace, peace once again, my fellow cyclomate. Cosmic Traveler, peace, peace. J Bald Hayel, peace and greetings, my fellow cyclomate. Sunshine Chick, always great to see you. J Baldhill says we are on 27. My Gnosis says we are 27, Trev. All right. 27 it is. That's how long it's been, right? That's how long it's been. Kevros, SS God, peace. The digital alchemist, peace, my friend, peace. My fellow cyclomate. All right. Well, in any case, let's see. The Logos itself corresponds to the divine spark, the universe in its group soul aspect to the individuality, the evolutionary swarm to the personality. Yeah, that is quite a ways back, actually. Yeah, you guys remember the talk about the planetary swarms? That was 21. Let's see with 22, what do we have? Okay, so yeah, I did see in 22 something I did want to kind of just briefly touch on once again. Page 129, she talks about how he who takes the earth as his planet becomes earthbound, and the time is soon now, as cosmic time is reckoned, that the present human evolution will be withdrawn from the earth plane, and therefore the advanced souls of that evolution do not find their development in communion with the earth soul. It is to the children of the elements that the earth is an initiator, not to the children of men. The earth and the moon initiations are physical initiations and concern the fall into matter and generation. Let's see what she says about these planets. The earth, to the plane of the dense physical. The moon, her satellite, to that division of it known as the etheric. Mars dominates the plane of the instincts and passions. Venus is the plane of abstract emotions. Saturn is the plane of the concrete mind. Saturn, be it noticed, is the formative influence. Mercury is the planet of the abstract mind. Jupiter, the planet of the concrete spiritual. And the Sun himself is the symbol of the Logos on the seventh plane. Now, as has been aforesaid, the planetary spheres are great but mindless entities. Therefore, each has assigned to it a guide, and these guides are of the first evolution, being lords of flame, and they are called the archangels of the spheres. It is through the knowledge of these the dominion of the planes is secured. Now, for that reason, their names are guarded and known in their entirety to the Logos alone. For by the name in its entirety, it is possible to command, but in the name of its consonants only, it is possible to invoke. She gave you a hint there. We can invoke these archangelic entities. But invoking an entity is not the same thing as commanding it. Now, is it? Is it? It's not the same thing as controlling it either. You can invoke a certain entity when you drink a cup full of bleach. You're invoking something for sure. Now, as far as commanding and controlling it, that's a whole nother story. Whole nother story. Let's keep going. Cosmic Traveler says, thought something was wrong last week. Almost reached out. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. But no, I decided that I needed to take some time off for sure. I have most certainly experienced being burned out by this YouTube stuff and the classes and consultations. I definitely worked myself to the red line of the battery. I refuse to do that again. So if I feel like I need to take a break, I'm just going to go ahead and do that so that the work that I do after that is not compromised. But I appreciate the sentiment for sure. I'm good, man. My karma is balanced. Ain't nothing strange gonna happen to me. I don't do nothing in the physical plane. I have intentionally neutralized my physical state. Afro Ninja says, haven't we read this before? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we gonna read it again. Okay, so let's see here. She says that we will proceed to enumerate and describe the different types of life which may be distinguished upon a given planet. First, there will be the completed entities of earlier evolutions, right? And remember about the waves that come through. These are the three types already known to you: the Lords of Flame, Lords of Form, and the Lords of Mind. I remember we just talked about the Lords of Flame, those being the archangels. These function in their spheres as regents. Plane 7 and 6, Lords of Flame. They are behind the laws of physics. Remember that when dealing with archangels. Their work, the regents of the elements and givers of life, elementals, and their servants. Think about what Gabriel is said to have done. Think about what Michael does. Think about what Uriel does. Think what Raphael does, right? Regents of the elements and the givers of life, elementals and their servants, right? Planes 5 and 4 are the lords of mind. They're behind the laws of biology, right? Think about this and consider this when you think about working with entities. Dimensional legend, peace. Matthew Watson, peace, peace, bro. So, planes 5 and 4, lords of mind, behind the laws of biology. Their work is with the regents of the science of life, right? Planes 3 and 2, lords of form. Lords of form. They're behind the laws of chemistry. And their work enables force to function by confining it, right? Lords of form, they deal with chemistry. They enable force to function by confining it. They're also the givers of death. Now, look, don't just let these words kind of go in one ear and out the other. If you're somebody who works with entities and you do magic and you call yourself all this is something that you need to know if what you want to do is efficient work. Because the last thing you want to do is be scrambling and scraping, right? What did he say about scrambling and scraping? He likes when you're scrambling and scraping. You don't want to be scrambling and scraping, trying to figure out what entity to invoke, what spirit to summon when you need something. You want to have nice, neat little categories to know, okay, I have a need in this area or that area. You'll know where to go. You'll know where to go. So that was page 135. Archangels, behind the laws of physics, dealing with the elements, right? Elementals. Planes 5 and 4, lords of mind, biology, reasons of the science of life. Planes 3 and 2, lords of form, behind the laws of chemistry. They enable force to function by containing it, by confining it. Planes 1 are the lords of humanity, right? They're behind the laws of sociology, and their work is developing human evolution. I'll give you a hint. You're very familiar with those on that plane. Framestar Films, peace, peace, fellow cyclomate, and beyond. Okay, quick run-throughs just to kind of, get me back up to speed. So once again, she says here, the laws of flame are the laws of physics. They are the laws of physics. The laws of form are the laws of chemistry. The laws of mind are the laws of biology. And the laws of humanity will be the laws of sociology. Cool. Influences which humanity exerts itself upon. It should also be remembered with regard to the individual that just as all the latencies of the past are innate in him, so are all the potentialities of the future. And that some of these potentialities are on the threshold of actuality. And I think that's a very fancy way of saying the effect is wrapped up in the cause. Remember that? Remember that from Samkhya? The effect is buried in the heart of the cause. So before you even do something, the potentiality for the effect is there already. Think about in the Avengers movie where Doctor Strange was looking through all the different multiverses and potential outcomes, right? Thank you, Minosis. Specifically, we're talking about Prakriti. We're talking about the Matrix. We're talking about Mother Earth, right? Not just the Earth as the planet, but this whole system that we find ourselves operating within, right? That's the physical plane, etheric plane, astral plane, mental plane. Now, think of all that and remember this. Just as all the latencies of the past are innate within you, right? In other words, all your DNA is inside your physical body from the past. That's all data. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Think about this. The DNA in your body goes back to the beginning of mankind. Isn't that a mind boggler? The genetics within your body go back to the beginning, go back to day zero, right? That's data, that's memory. So just like all the latencies of the past are innate within you, so are all the potentialities of the future. Every possible choice is already bundled up in every Everything that you do, every reaction is bundled up in every action, every thought, every feeling. What is free will? Where is free will? Because it's not within Prakriti, I'll tell you that. Some of these potentialities are on the threshold of actuality. This is interesting as well, right? Because we're talking about memory here. The doctrine of the group soul is closely interwoven with that of the planetary spirit. For, as has been shown, the planetary spirit is the personality of the planet built up out of its experiences derived from the consciousness functioning within that sphere. The collective unconscious. All the different data comes together to form an overarching pattern. One thing about patterns is that you're going to find them at every level. If you pay attention to your life, you're going to find patterns of behavior, patterns of emotion, patterns of thinking. And if you zoom out, if you were able to zoom out and observe the people that are closely in your life, mother, father, siblings, best friends, lovers, children, if you were to be able to see everyone, you'll notice patterns of interaction between all of you. And if you zoom out some more between people connected to you and those around you, you'll see patterns. And the more that you zoom out, you'll continue to see more and more patterns. I have the wonderful blessing of an opportunity to communicate with many of you, right? I've spoken to hundreds of people who watch my YouTube channel and have been involved with my content. And I'm able to see patterns amongst all of you. Patterns that many people believe, it's just me or no one else is really going through this. But no, you'd be surprised at how common the things that we experience are shared with, the person that posted just before you and the person that's going to post right after you and the people who don't ever comment. You'd be surprised about these patterns. And she says here that the planetary spirit is the personality of the planet built up out of its experiences derived from the consciousness functioning within its sphere. No consideration of group or individual psychology can be adequate unless allowance be made for the influence of the planetary spirit. So check that out now. It's not just a cool thing to say, oh, the collective unconscious. No. Understand that patterns affect each other. There are patterns, relationships, and relationships of patterns. Or I should say patterns of relationships. There's a saying that says no man is an island, right? Echoes. Seriously, Triple Eight says, so what does that really say? There are only a few things one can be, I feel like. Absolutely. I mean, it makes us feel better to think about our unlimited options. But in truth, we're predisposed and preconditioned to do a handful of things, are we not? It's, like I said, all the different potentialities wrapped up in every move that you make. But generally, you know what you're going to do tonight, right? There's a few options that I know that I'm going to do. I could do anything, right? I could go Grand Theft Auto and steal somebody's car and go on a rampage. But I'm not going to do that. It's probably I'm probably going to ask my son if he wants to watch a scary movie, and he'll say no, and we'll end up watching something else, right? I'm probably going to play some Fortnite. I'm probably going to, there's a certain number of things that we're going to do in our lives. So if you're bound to your pattern, just imagine people who don't even work on themselves or care about self-awareness. Think about how tightly bound they are to their patterns. Think about the people you deal with on a daily basis. What did she say earlier about the lords of form, right? They take consciousness and bind it. They confine it, and that's how they create life. Well, that's what you are. That's what all of us are. That's what all these living creatures in bodies are. We are life force bound within a form. And she mentioned a few chapters before, I couldn't even begin to guess which one it was, but she mentioned about how when these rhythms and patterns get locked into a certain flow. Like when it's not going to change, when it gets locked into a predictable pattern, it is only a matter of time before that becomes form, before that vibration condenses and becomes matter, right? I mean, just think about it. Think about it. Think about culture. Why are there stereotypes about black people? Why are there stereotypes about white people? Why are there stereotypes about Mexican people, Indian people, Chinese people, Japanese? You know what I'm saying? Why are there stereotypes? Because we are bound to these patterns. And yes, they are cultural, but guess what? There's also genetic. There's also genetic. There's some things that you do simply because of the body that you incarnated in, because of the history of those genetics, right? And understand, that's the human animal. That's not you. That's the human animal, right? So there's nothing to get offended about or mad about, or, oh, we got to break free. Like, no, it's supposed to be that way. That's why it is that way, right? This is a system. What you are is above and beyond this. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can start your work. Christina Smith, peace, peace. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah, speaking of race, very next page. Each race maintains its cultural traditions, and each cult survives until the faculties which it was designed to initiate have become the normal inheritance of the species. Then it ceases to become esoteric and becomes exoteric. There's a reason why we do what we do. Everything that we do is spiritual, even if you don't like it, right? If everybody in your family gives the kids, the young boys, a mullet haircut, that there's a spiritual quality to that. There's a reason why all the young men in your family have mullets, right? Did anybody here? Did you ever have a rat tail as a kid? You ever have it beaded up or braided up? That was back in the '90s. I remember that. I don't think they still do it now. But culture, even with the culture, there's a reason why we do the things we do. We're channeling a certain kind of energy into the earth for the race. And when it's done, it ceases to happen. It ceases to happen. When me and my brothers were little, we used to have this little rat tail. I don't even know I forgot about that. I haven't seen it since the '90s. The little hair that grew on the back, and they used to put little beads in it and twist it up. Long time ago. I don't even think kids have those anymore. I don't even think they have those anymore. But when I was going to elementary school, everybody had one. Jay Baldhill says I had one as an adult. Oh my. Oh my, that's funny. Yeah, I did. Me and all three of my brothers had one. My parents used to have us all dressing the same and looking the same. We all had a little box cut, you know what I'm saying, a little 90-degree sharp edge box cut with that beaded rat tail on the back. Reading that line just unlocked a core memory that I had buried, right? Now you know what, and as a gift to you, you're gonna dream something that you haven't dreamt in so long, and it's gonna make you smile. Cults do not die because they are cut off from the march of progress, but because their spiritual principle is absorbed completely in the life of the race. I almost said rat race. Now, I want you to consider also about music, right? You ever get mad about music and remember, like, hell, back in the 70s, they used to make a certain kind of music, and they don't do it like that anymore. In the 80s, they used to make a certain kind of music, but they don't make it like that anymore. Hell, even in the 90s, they made a certain kind of music, but they don't make it like that anymore. And in the 2000s, right, it started getting a little kind of a little weird. Then the 2010s came. Then the 2020s came, right? And you hear these young folks talking about so and so is the best musician that have ever lived, and damn near hurt your eyeballs rolling into the back of your head so hard. But this is the thing. It's not that people, long story short, the human race doesn't need funk like that anymore. It don't need jazz. It don't need old school rock and roll anymore. It don't need the 90s hip hop. I said a hip to the hop to the hippie to the hip. The human race doesn't need those things anymore. See, we think that music is made just to entertain us, but no, that's an expression of energy that's happening in the generation. That real, quote unquote, real music isn't created anymore because the human race doesn't need it anymore. What the human race needs right now is this extremely auto-tuned mumble rap with the purely electronic digital beats. And who am I to judge what Prakriti feeds her babies, right? Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're almost there. Oh yeah, and this was an interesting line. Remember this. Talking about those cults, right? The cults of the past gain their power by contacting the strata of the earth soul to which their initiation belongs. Remember we talked about this? This was a really cool portion. That which we're talking about these cults, right? They do not die because they're cut off from the march of progress, but because their spiritual principle is absorbed, right? And they're absorbed completely in the life of the race. Look what it says. That which they set out to teach is taken for granted, and their day and teaching is over because the pupil knows the lesson, right? That stuff is finished and complete because the humanity as a whole, remember we were just talking about the collective consciousness of the planet, right? Funkadelic has written all the songs that Prakriti needs to hear. Gap Band, you dropped a bomb on me. Prakriti only needed that one time. She doesn't need that anymore. We don't need LL Cool J anymore. We don't need the Beatles anymore. We don't need the Bee Gees anymore, right? It's all said and done. We don't need another Michael Jordan. We don't need another Michael Jackson. We don't need another Mike Tyson. We don't need another Michelangelo. We don't need another Leonardo da Vinci. You see what I'm saying? These things manifested and incarnated, and they serve their purpose, just like you are here to serve your specific purpose for the collective unconscious. That which they set out to teach is taken for granted, and their day and teaching is over because the pupil knows the lesson. That which is slawed off is but the effete accretions of human opinions, right? The shit of human opinion, seeking to explain that which transcends it. How are you going to explain that which transcends you, right? But as long as there are souls that require the discipline, the cult lives on, right? So look, the Golden Dawn did their thing. They're gone. They're finished, right? However, for those of us who will benefit in our evolution from their teachings, that's us. When she says right here, as long as there are souls that require the discipline, the cult lives on. Look, the Empire wiped out the Jedi, didn't they? Wiped them out. But you still had a little sprinkling of Jedi here and there in the corners of the galaxy for those who would manifest with the Force and require some training. You didn't need a whole Jedi Council for Luke Skywalker, right? You didn't need all that. The cults of the past gained their power by contacting the strata of the Earth's soul to which their initiation belongs. Now, be it known that these strata have close connection with the elementals, being used by them for the building of the thought forms which enable them to assume a species of incarnation. She's saying that these elementals live through the mental plane. They assume bodies of thought. You heard of thought forms, right? Well, this isn't limited to just something that you want to create when you pick up a book. These thought forms existed and continue to exist with or without your participation. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to be involved with it. But there are elementals that use complete thought forms, right, to express their existence. Therefore, the context of an atavistic cult may be far-reaching. So when you tap into some of this ancient stuff, you really, literally have no idea what you're tapping into. We should be thankful that some of the rituals are lost. Seriously. Enchanted Cottage 333. Peace, peace. Great to see you. Listen, I received your email and it was beautiful. And I highly appreciate it. I thank you. You know, I actually got your email literally as soon as you sent it because I just so happened to be looking at my phone and I read it. And I didn't want to respond right away, but it made me happy. Framestar, I like that. Framestar says, we are not part of the problem or the solution. We are part of the pattern. Yes, exactly. Right. And the sooner that we see life through that perspective, it's going to help with non-attachment, right? It's going to help with being able to see things clearly, right? Because the more that you believe that you are a part of this thing and you have this duty, right? You have this duty to continue playing the game, then you're going to continue playing the game. And that's your choice. That's the level you're on. But like I said earlier, shoot, I'm working on neutralizing my karma. And I didn't know that I was doing this, but I've been working on that for damn near 12 years. Wait, 2008, 18. Hell, maybe 16 years I've been working on that, slowly but surely. But as with all things, as I realized what I was doing, right, I was subconsciously training myself to lose the distinction between day and night. Right, so I would black out my windows because I didn't want to know when the sun was up or down. I was curious to exist without having to be attached to the sun. Right, that it worked, right? I screwed my sleep pattern all the way up. Because what comes after that is losing the awareness of time. So now the experience of time is just all over the place. 5 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, shit. Depending on what's happening, it all feels the same to me. And the more that you start to dissolve and break these walls down, there are other connected walls that begin to dissolve as well. Right? There are other patterns that I've been locked into as a youth that I gradually have begun to just expand beyond. There's no need for me to play certain games anymore. Why? I'll ask you a question. And I'm not saying that this is me, but I'm just saying, think of this concept. If you never had to leave your house ever again, would you still wear shoes and socks? If you never had to leave your house again, hell, would you still wear pants? If you never had to leave the house and you're never going to contact another human soul, like, think about that. After a day passes, week passes, months pass, years pass, think about the stuff that you would stop doing. I'm serious. If you were never leaving the house again, why put on socks and tie up your shoes? If you're never going to be seen by another person, would you still wear clothes? Like that's the kind of train of thought I'm saying. When you start to dissolve and break down certain pillars of what you consider being a human being, when you start to dissolve those lines, what really exists behind those prison walls? All right. So let's go ahead and get to where we get into. Serious to AAA says no, there wouldn't be a purpose. Are the shoes useful and appropriate? Right. You know, and for a while you'll wear them just because it's habit, but eventually it's like, well, damn, I'm literally not going anywhere, right? My Gnosis says Bankhead bounced around the house naked. Hell, you know what I'm saying? Who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you and who cares, right? And after you get that out of your system, then what? Sunshine Chick says you step into the realm of being. Right. And what would that be like for you? Right? What would that be like for you? Nobody around to judge you. No one's opinions at all. Literally just you existing. Matthew Watson says, no wonder aliens are always naked. Facts. Facts. Jay Baldhill says, if you have hard-ass floors, then you will. Or you will build tough feet. You know, in that case, it would be useful and appropriate, right? What I'm saying is, the human adjusts to its environment. And when you start removing certain non-useful, inappropriate environmental elements, what remains? What remains? Would you grow out your beard long like Santa Claus? Would you keep cutting your hair? Would you keep paying $50 to go to the barbershop and get that trim up? Right? Would you still do that? Think about that, right? And what that does is it helps you to think about the things that you invest your energy into that you're literally doing because everyone else is doing it. One day I stopped going to the barbershop and just never went back. That's when I knew something was changing. And I was saving my little $50 a week, $50 every 2 or whatever the hell they charge me. I remember when it was $10 for a haircut. Somebody said nowadays it's in like the $50 to $70 range. Y'all tripping. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Either you're tripping or learn to do it yourself, right? I'll be damned if I catch me doing something like that. All right, let's keep going. And I'm not going to get into it, but let's think about another layer. Why do you do that? Why do you spend all that money on that little lineup? Why do you spend all that money for the barber to make that crooked hairline look straight? Like, why do you do that? Right? Because you're trying to get something specific, right? What would happen if that desire stopped being a major pull? What would your personality be like if it was not over sexualized? But we're not going to go there. Monica Lawan says the kids are $35 now. Oh no, my son growing his afro like me. That's how it's going to be. Sunshine Chick says most of the time you do these things for other people. Exactly. All right, so let's keep going. Oh yeah. This was a really cool one as well. We're almost there, y'all. Let me see what chapter is this. 26. Yeah, we're almost there. Let me read this one. These values have already been explained to you. It will no doubt have occurred to you that when a force being transmuted from one plane to another exerts its force on a second plane and withdraws its influence from the first, an alteration of equilibrium will result. This is indeed the case, and it is therefore necessary for the adept who performs this operation to maintain the adequate equilibrium of stresses. Listen close. For this purpose, he must know the method of properly degrading an equivalent force. This is an exceedingly important point in practical occultism. This is on page 149 if you want to go back and study it, if you didn't already, and concerns the utilization of reverse aspects in their compensating potencies. The Sephiroth being reversed are the Cliffoth. I love seeing that word in print, don't you? Therein is the key to much. And therein it is that in every magical operation in which great spiritual potencies are invoked, listening, lesser entities are also employed in their proper aspects. And when what you would term a master wishes to operate on the physical plane, he will of necessity employ an entity of a lower grade of evolution than his own, and he will be compelled to work through the personality of that person in order to restore the equilibrium which he is about to displace. He will then, metaphorically speaking, employ that entity as the nadir of his arc. Let me break that down for you, because we went into it a little bit, but not all the way. You, right, would be the master, right? And you would be attempting to invoke Gabriel, right, to, I don't know, help you to conceive of a perfectly healthy child, right, or something of that nature. That's you reaching up, dealing with that powerful force that is beyond your capacity. So what you would do to compensate is you would invoke an elemental to restore the energy that you're about to displace. Do you see how that works? You're pulling down from an angel and you're putting the workload onto a so-called demonic spirit or an elemental spirit to balance it out, right? So when you're shifting this chain of command, it's shifting on multiple levels, as above, so below. The force he transmutes will be received by the highest aspect of that entity and will be expressed by the lowest and most concrete aspect of the individuality of that entity, and the person will be used for the return flow from the physical plane. All right, one more. As a person who's been actively practicing magic for several years in a row, I would advise you to read that portion again on your own. Not just because it sounds cool and it said the word clip off in it, but that's like a key I don't know if she was supposed to give away. All right, another good one. Monica Lawan says, seems like this is why working with both is beneficial. Precisely. And that also shows why it's ignorance to be afraid of something, of a word, right? Because if you're only doing if you're doing a half-assed ritual, what do you expect to get in return from that? All right, let me read this one. But in order to bring any energy into manifestation, it is necessary to provide it with a form or vehicle. The form is built in the substance of the plane immediately superior to that upon which it is desired to produce an effect. And through this channel is directed the force it is desired to invoke. To invoke a force without directing it is to disperse it. It is only by a knowledge and utilization of the law of limitation that power can be conserved. In order to achieve an end, you must outline that end and limit yourself to it. This is the law of limitation. Rejecting all that is irrelevant. And note this point. The first process in the invocation of power is the rejection of that which is irrelevant. That's why I keep saying useful and appropriate. If it's not useful, it's useless. If it's not appropriate, it's inappropriate, right? The first process in the invocation of power is the rejection of that which is irrelevant. This is another name for concentration. The law of limitation means the concentration of power by the rejection of the irrelevant. This is not sufficiently understood. In all undertakings, the prime requisite for success is to know what you cannot do. This is discrimination. Veronica Archaga, peace. Listen, it's been a really long time, Veronica. I love you and I hope that you're doing well. I know that you're doing well, but I still hope that you're doing well. Okay, and I'll read this one too. The law of limitation is the necessary corollary of the laws governing the invocation of power. When it is desired to put through an enterprise, first proceed to think the matter out in all its details, clearly outlining the end it is designed to achieve. That should be your first step. Next, consider the means whereby that end may be achieved. Next, proceed to eliminate all desire for anything unconnected with that aim. This is a most important point. In other words, you render yourself one-pointed. Limitation of consciousness implies selection of experience and the focusing of attention upon a chosen subject. All right, I feel it. Getting back into it. Had to dust off the engine and let it run for a little bit. Oh, yeah, we can't forget this. Gems upon gems. Always correlate your effort with the cosmos itself and see your work in relation to the whole, but rigidly circumscribe the section of that cosmic whole which you take into your hands. Veronica says, I lost your number in my phone contacts. Was that you that texted me that once and said I lost my number, I'm trying to get my numbers back? I don't know if that was you or not. Let me know if that was you that texted me that one time. Okay, so look for these on the astral plane among the emotions involved in the matter. Okay, so I think that we're getting right back to where we were. Yeah, because the camera was having issues. I see. Now, the ring cosmos is the concept on the mental plane. The ring chaos is the driving force of the instincts. And the ring past not corresponds to the upper astral aspect. By meditating on these correspondences, you will learn much. That's page 156. She said the ring cosmos is the concept on the mental plane. The ring chaos is the driving force of the instincts. Look at how the instincts drive you to the outside of the circle. The ring chaos. And the mental plane drives you towards the center. Ooh. Incarnation is based upon the law of limitation, karma, or destiny, on the law of action and reaction. And because it is only in a limited sphere that equal and opposite action and reaction can take place, you know, I never thought about that. We talk about equal and opposite reaction, and matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Not because it's infinite, but because it's finite. Like, think about it. If this is a closed system, there's only so much to go around. So if you take, it isn't even really taking, you're just changing the form from one to another. She says, and because it is only in a limited sphere that equal and opposite action and reaction can take place, force has to be manifested in form so that the fruits of its action may be returned again to the sphere whence it originated. Up, down, and all around. The building of a vehicle for incarnation follows the lines already laid down. Again, we have the circumscribing, which delimits the destiny to be worked out in that incarnation. Each soul determines with what pabulum the personality shall supply it. The oversoul is the lord of destiny to each one. It is this you invoke in all matters connected with your fate. You invoke your own higher self. Don't be scared to work with your higher self. In fact, that should be one of your goals. A major one. To reconnect. But in order to do that, you gotta move some things out of the way. Some very human things. Not everything, but most of those things that are not useful and appropriate to having a relationship with your higher self. So long as consciousness dwells in the senses, it will view things from the standpoint of the senses, of pain and pleasure, beginning and ending. But when raised to the elevation of cosmic things, it will see all things in relation to evolution, to the curve that comes round the whole circle, not to the straight line of the partition of finiteness. Death and initiation produce the same results. Therefore, it is that all initiations contain the symbolism of death and burial. And then she left us off with some good advice. With regard to the practical application of this, when a problem presents itself for a solution, gather together in meditation. First, outline the problem in debate. Then meditate upon its cosmic aspect and invoke the cosmic force. Hold on. Let me go back just a little bit. Always remember that upon the material plane, death and loss means freedom and resurrection. Possessions are as the earth that is heaped upon the corpse. Learn therefore to look down upon your dead bodies and to galvanize them with your life. But do not make the mistake of living in them. Oh, it is very useful to be able to project consciousness onto the mundane sphere, but it is very disadvantageous to be fettered by the conditions of that sphere. You are held to that sphere by two things: fear and desire. Those are the two chains that hold each of your arms: fear and desire. What is it that you fear? What is it that you desire? And who do you have to become to be free from those things? Initiation will enable you to live upon this plane, though still attached to brain consciousness. It is therefore that the degrees teach, firstly, the overcoming of the desire, secondly, the overcoming of fear, and thirdly, death and resurrection. I told you, I'm already on that work. By knowing the law of limitation and transcending it, you can use it. Having circumscribed the task you have set for yourself, see it in relation to the cosmos. By seeing the cosmic archetype, you will draw in the force of that ideal. And by seeing the circumscribed form, which it is desired to manifest, you will focus that force. With regard to the practical application of this, when a problem presents itself for its solution, gather together in meditation. First, outline the problem in debate, then meditate upon its cosmic aspect and invoke the cosmic force. All right, 27, the law of 7 deaths. All right, had to go back through all that so we can get back into the zone. But this is one of my first chapters. It was so much interesting to me. I believe I already read this on my live stream once, without even having read the rest of the book. But now that we have everything, let's proceed with chapter 27, the law of 7 deaths. How you living? What? How you living? What? In living color. Let's do it. Chapter 27, the law of the 7 deaths. As has been previously recorded, when two lines of movement intersect, a vortex is set up. These two lines of movement then cease to exist and become a center of stability. This is the first death. Hey, now check it. As I read these deaths, visualize it, right? See it in your mind's eye, right? Do that now. We're going to go back and read this. Visualize this. The first death. As has been previously recorded, when two lines of movement intersect, a vortex is set up, right? So remember what she said? That movement is set forth, and we're talking about a massive distance of light years, of bigger than anything we can imagine. Eventually, that's going to curve, create a spiral, and that's going to be your ring cosmos. But she says that when there's two lines of movement that intersect each other, one going this way, one going the opposite way, or any other way, when they cross, because remember what she said, that motion doesn't stop. It goes on forever. So when those two lines of movement intersect, a vortex is set up. These two lines of movement then cease to exist and become a center of stability. They've been entangled. This is the first death. The second death. Learn now the implications of death. Action and reaction are equal and opposite upon the plane of their inception. They act, react, and continue to manifest in cyclic form. When transmuted from one plane to another, they cease to manifest upon the first plane and come into being in a different form upon the next plane. If this translation be viewed from the plane of the inception of these forces, it is called death. If it be viewed from the plane of the reception of these forces, it is called birth. Did you see that? When transmuted from one plane to another, they cease to manifest upon the first plane. When transmuted from one plane to another, they cease to manifest from one plane and come into being in a different form upon the next plane. If this translation be viewed from the plane of the inception of these forces, it's called death. Think about the plane that your body is incepted in, right? And when the force that governs your body is translated to another form, it's going to look like a death. But guess what? If it is viewed from the plane of the reception of those forces, it is called birth. If an involutionary change be viewed from the more primitive aspect, it is looked upon as a death. If it be viewed from the more evolved aspect, it is looked upon as a birth. This is the second death. Moby, peace, peace. Let us make this clear by an example. Life, having evolved beyond the capacity of lowly forms to give it expression, builds itself higher forms. The fossilized remains of the abandoned lower forms are found among the debris of life. They have undergone death. Their race is extinct. They are no more. Please consider this, yo. You've seen those giant crustaceans, right? Or the giant, you know, creatures that live in a spirally shell. I don't know what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about. Or them giant beetle-looking things from the ocean. Think about all these fossilized creatures that are found in abundance. I'm not talking about dinosaurs. I'm not talking about papier-mâché elephant rhinoceros bones. Think about the ones that you've seen in abundance and people still casually dig up to this day, right? Somebody tell me, what are those things called, right? They're in a giant spiral shell and they've got like tentacles. Does anybody know what that creature is called? It was a Pokemon, like one of the early 150 Pokemon. Oh well, you know what I mean. The word cephalopod is in my head, but I don't think that's what it is. Anyways, you get the image. These things are fossilized and in deep abundance. So, these fossilized remains of the abandoned lower forms are found among the debris of life. They have undergone death. Their race is extinct. They are no more. But the life has achieved rebirth into a higher type of vehicle. It is only by the abandonment of the simpler form that life could enter the more complex, though the consciousness that is in the plane of the simpler form sees here in a tragedy because it cannot conceive the higher life and it sees its own passing prefigured. But the consciousness, which is of the higher life, sees the birth of a new manifestation and rejoices, for it sees the fuller expression of its potentialities. I like that. The third death. Each individualized consciousness lives to die and dies to live. It is only by death that we can reap the fruits of life. We graze in the fields of earth, and we lie down in the fields of heaven to chew the cud. It has been said, for 1 hour's study, do 3 hours meditation. To each span of life, there are 3 spans of death. In death is the soul's meditation, and life its study. Oh, that's powerful. In death is the soul's meditation, and in life is its study. Did you but live, all experience would pass through consciousness and leave but little impression after the first few pictures had filled all available space. All would be concrete, unrelated, unsynthesized, but in the meditation, which is death, the abstract essence of life is extracted, and instead of a million concrete images, there is the abstract concept. Do you understand that? If you've been listening to me for any amount of time, I've talked about this before. Like, it's not about the actual manifest thing that happened. It's about what you pulled out of it. It's about the substance behind the event. How did it make you feel? What was the lesson? Right? You could do a ritual and summon a spirit and XYZ could happen. None of that matters. What matters is what you derived from that experience. And that goes to stand with all of life. You don't remember most of the conversations you've had, right? You don't. We don't. You don't remember what was said yesterday. You might remember a sentence or a key word, but we don't even remember what was said yesterday or earlier today if you want to get funky with it. We don't remember that. But what we do remember is how those words made us feel, how those experiences and those connections made us feel. Damn. And if that don't make you stop and think about the people that you love and want to spend time with, those words don't mean anything. Right? But let me read that again. Did you but live, all experience would pass through consciousness and leave but little impression after the first few pictures had filled all available space. All would be concrete, unrelated, unsynthesized, but in the meditation, which is death, the abstract essence of life is extracted. The abstract essence of life is extracted. And instead of a million concrete images, there is the abstract concept. Haunting. Maybe that's just me. It is death alone which enables you to utilize experience. Learn to trust death. Learn to love death. Learn to count upon death in your scheme of things, and regularly perform the exercise of visualizing yourself as dead, and conceiving how you then shall be. For thus you will learn to build the bridge between life and death, so that it shall be trodden with increasing ease. How do you receive that sentence? Is it scary to you? Does it make you uncomfortable? How do you receive that sentence? Learn to count upon death in your scheme of things, and regularly perform the exercise of visualizing yourself as dead, and conceiving how you then shall be. For thus you will learn to build the bridge between life and death, so that it shall be trodden with increasing ease. See yourselves as dead, and working out your destiny. See yourselves as dead, and continuing your work from the plane of the dead. Thus shall the bridge be built that leads beyond the veil. Let the chasm between the so-called living and the so-called dead be bridged by this method, that men may cease to fear death. The fourth death. 4 is always the linking number. The fourth body, being the highest aspect of the personality, links it with the individuality. And the fourth death is called the linking death, the teaching death, or alternatively may be known as sleep. Sleep is a miniature death. Just as death is the major sleep, and a knowledge of the nature of sleep assists to explain death, the nature of sleep is insufficiently understood. The impressions of sleep received by the waking consciousness are misleading. In sleep, the physical plane is dissociated from the other planes, and the soul, thus freed, receives no longer the impressions coming through the 5 gates of sense, and we say it sleeps and is passive, but the individuality works and is active. In waking life, the individuality sleeps, and in sleeping life, the individuality wakes. The individuality is referred to in the sacred writing as the angel that ever beholds the face of God. During the waking life of the body, the individuality is intent upon translating into its own terms of abstraction the concrete impressions flowing into the lower soul. When it is no longer thus in turn subjective, because the lower soul is not pouring upon its impressions, it becomes objective upon its own plane and beholds the face of the Father. It then measures itself by the divine standard and makes such adjustments as are within its power. But the adjustments are of the Spirit. The adjustments of the Spirit are aeonial, and are measured by the span of heaven. So we're not talking about adjustments for, today I'm not going to smoke, or this week I'm going to give it up. We're talking about eons. Right? Let's go back. During the waking life of the body, the individuality is intent upon translating into its own terms of abstraction the concrete impressions flowing into the lower soul. It's doing its best, right? When it is no longer thus in turn subjective, because the lower soul is not pouring upon it impressions, it becomes objective upon its own plane and beholds the face of the Father. It then measures itself by the divine standard and makes such adjustments as are within its power. But the adjustments of the Spirit are aeonal and are measured by the span of heaven. During sleep, the lesser soul may not, however, sink into oblivion, but being much concerned with the unsatisfied desires of the flesh, it will continue to function in relation to the thought forms begot of these desires. Somebody say samskaras. Does anybody remember samskaras from our studies maybe 2 years ago? What are samskaras? Samskaras. Maybe look that word up if you've never heard it before. Because the ancient folk knew. During sleep, the lesser soul may not, however, sink into oblivion, But being much concerned with the unsatisfied desires of the flesh. You mean to tell me that when I die, my unsatisfied desires don't simply die as well? Oh no. Oh no. See them unsatisfied desires of yours? They're not in the body. You're carrying them with you. You're carrying them with you. Uh-oh. You better work on it now while you still can. Being much concerned with the unsatisfied desires of the flesh, it will continue to function in relation to the thought forms begot of these desires. You are doing this to yourself. Don't ever blame it on anybody or anything. I don't want to hear no product of my environment, because that's not going to hold up in cosmic court. The devil made me do it. Life! It will continue to function in relation to the thought forms begot by these desires, of these desires. It dreams the dreams derived from unsatisfied passions and the urge of the instincts. The individuality is not freed, and instead of beholding the face of the Father which is in heaven, beholds the reversed image of the human form, and thereby develops in its own likeness. I remember in the Bible when I think Paul spoke about this, as well as John in Revelation. They talked about how when the angel came to deliver truth, it was bitter in their mouth but sweet in their stomach. In other words, it hurt, but they knew it was good for them. It didn't sound pleasing, but they knew it was the truth. Some things you have to deal with. This zoo is designed to keep you over-sexualized. And it's not for no reason. Being the animals of the human race, Prakriti needs new batteries, just like in that movie. Copper top, baby. Copper top. Framestar Film says, as Alan Watts said, birth is like the experience of waking up, having never waking up before. And death is like falling asleep, having never fallen asleep before. Oh, that's interesting. Oh my. There are many years growing up where we yearn to wake up and see more and be more. But I think there's a line that's crossed when you're ready to rest and rest more. Oh boy. The individuality, being unable to function on its own plane, makes no growth and remains unevolved, and the personality becomes an exaggerated caricature of itself. From this, it can only be freed by the third death. Thereby enabling the individuality to assert itself. But if the third death be incomplete, the lower soul will continue to dream upon the astral plane. This leads us to the question of the fifth death. The fifth death is the death of the personality. The personality, being withdrawn from the body, yet continues to live and to function as a personality, and the man is in no wise changed, and still answers to the name he bore in the flesh. Yikes. Let's go back. The fifth death is the death of the personality. The personality being withdrawn from the body, yet continues to live and to function as a personality. Think about that. We're talking about a ghost here, which you would call a ghost, a wandering spirit, yet continues to live and to function as a personality. And the man is in no way, no wise changed, and still answers to the name he bore in the flesh. In the lower hells, he burns with desire until the possibilities of desire are burnt out. That don't even sound like it feels good. That means you just give up from utterly accepting it's never gonna happen. And for some folks, that might not be a quick process. In the lower hells, he burns with desire until the possibilities of desire are burnt out. Desire then remains only as an abstract idea and as part of the individuality. He then dies to the lower desires, but continues to live in the higher desires. These, in their turn, he learns to be finite and mortal. He finds them to constitute barriers between himself and his Father, whose face he would behold, and he desires to escape from them. He would no longer love with the personal love which loves a person, but the higher manifestation of love, which itself is love, and loves no person or thing, but is a state of consciousness in which all is embraced. He then seeks freedom from the lesser love, and with this desire for escape from that which is good, though finite, in order to realize the good that is infinite, causes the fifth death, and he is born into consciousness of the individuality and lives upon the plane of the individuality, perceiving the face of his Father which is in heaven. But with the waking desire come again the dreams, and with the dreams come the recall into matter. The spirit beholding the face of its Father until consciousness is weary with its brightness, closes its eyes and sleeps. And sleeping, it dreams of its unfulfilled desires, and so it is born again. For upon the plane of desire, a state of consciousness is a place. For upon the plane of desire, a state of consciousness is a place. And as we desire, so are we reborn. Thus each man makes his own karma. Sheesh. Sheesh. It may be asked, how then is it that men make for themselves suffering and limitations which they could not desire? It is because they do not reap the fruits of fantasy, but the fruits of actuality. You don't reap the fruits of fantasy, but the fruits of actuality. Think about that. We all have fantasies, right? But guess what? We reap the fruits of actuality. How many times you ever fantasize about something that stayed better as a fantasy? Because when it became a reality, it was almost like the Temu version, the Wish version, the Walmart brand version. How many times did you think to yourself, maybe I should have just kept this one in my imagination? It is because they do not reap the fruits of fantasy, but the fruits of actuality. They are given the results of that which they have permitted themselves to desire, not the thing they desire. Desire from wish. You would think that after a certain amount of time, that would burn your hand and not put your hand back on the stove. But no, sometimes that desire burns so hot, you keep on trying it, and it doesn't get any better. I remember being a young person thinking, you know what, I can't wait to go to the club. I'm going to meet some hot chicks, and we're going to do stuff. And every time I went to the club, it was the same thing. I'm standing on the wall, listening to some dumbass music I didn't like in the first place, right? Went home by myself. Now, of course, yeah, that was all my fault. I'm not blaming anybody, but what I'm saying is, I know that feeling of revving up these desires and having this idea in your head, and then when it comes down time to do it, it doesn't. There are other factors involved that the fantasy didn't take into consideration. A dry example, but an example nonetheless. Let's keep going. They have. Go back to that one more time. Yeah. So they are given the results of that which they have permitted themselves to desire, not the thing that they desire. To exemplify, the man who desired power would obtain vanity. To obtain power, he would have to desire the qualities which confer power: strength, foresight, and wisdom. The man who desires power builds for himself the consciousness of the vain egotist. The man who desires strength, foresight, and wisdom builds for himself the consciousness of power. Boom. Do you understand that? That right there is why we really need to think beyond the words that we use. Like, it's so weird when people get hung up on words, right? It's never about the word. Always consider what you really mean. Power. I want power. Well, if power was a suitcase, if you were to unlock that suitcase and open it up, what would be inside of it, right? And that's a great place to start to really understand and unpack these words. The sixth death. The sixth death is trance. In trance, the body sleeps, but the soul is awake. It is active upon its own plane. It functions objectively in the sphere of its upper and lower aspects. It may function upon the sphere of its lower aspects, the instincts, with the body as a background. Or it may function upon the sphere of its higher aspects and concrete mind, with the emotions as a background. This is the plane of normal psychism, wherein picture consciousness portrays the events of the inner worlds as in a magic mirror, the conditions of the focus being determined by the emotional states. Oh man, this thing is giving me a vision. Spooky goosebump feeling. When psychic consciousness is focused by the instincts and passions with matter as a background, consciousness is transferred to the etheric matter, which is withdrawn from the dense vehicle in order that it may not act as the vehicle of passionate desires. Then are seen the manifestations of the lower magic, dangerous and evil in all its forms, degrading to the personality because its life is lived in relation to matter and not to spirit. Did you catch that distinction? Its life is lived in relation to matter, not in relation to spirit. And she called that degrading to the personality. Live all life with God for a background, and measure all your deeds against the span of heaven, and assess them in relation to the cosmos. So shall your sin seem grievous in your sight, and your errors very small. Do you understand what she means or is alluding to when she says, live all life with God for a background? Like, think about that. Here you are living your life and you're doing all your stuff, but 24/7 constantly you keep God in mind. You keep that concept of God and what comes with that concept of God, right? You think about a certain standard of living, a certain meaning of living. When you have that as your background, you're going to behave differently. You're going to think different. You're going to believe differently. Everything's going to be of a special characteristic. Do you understand that? Live all life with God for a background. Now let's go back up because this was giving me a weird vision. Now look, we just talked about God for a background. Let's read this once more now that we understand what that means. The sixth death is trance. In trance the body sleeps, but the soul is awake. It is active upon its own plane. It functions objectively in the sphere of its upper and lower aspects. It may function upon the sphere of its lower aspects, the instincts, with the body as a background. Do you hear me? It may function upon the sphere of its lower aspects, the instincts, with the body as a background. Or it may function upon the sphere of its higher aspects and concrete mind, with the emotions as a background. How many of y'all go through life with your emotions as a background? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This is the plane of normal psychism, wherein picture consciousness portrays the events of the inner worlds as in a magic mirror, the conditions of the focus being determined by the emotional states. Oh, I told my son he could get ice cream an hour ago. Hold on. Okay, all right. Listen, that boy did not need me to tell him to go ahead. Not only did he go ahead and get that ice cream at 9/11, he went ahead and helped himself to 3 or 4 of them in the meantime. That's all right. Go ahead. Those are his favorite ones, right? His name is called Johnny, and these are called Johnny Pops. So course, he loves these ones. That's all right. I bought them for him so he can eat as many as he wants. But I told him to slow down because he will eat them all tonight if I don't tell him to stop. Now, where were we? Etheric, peace, peace. Oh wow, we got 21 likes. So that's cool, I guess. But hey, if you like the video, please hit the like button. All right, let's continue. Right. So we talked about God as a background. We talked about the body as a background, emotions as a background. When psychic consciousness is focused by the instincts and passions with matter as a background, look, it's a lot of people in this state too. And I want you to think about this, right? Have you been able to identify the different people in your life who operate with the body as a background, right? Everything comes back to, oh, well, my body, right? People who live life with their emotions as a background. And then there's those who live with matter as a background. God bless. And then there's some who live with God as a background. Can you start to see a difference between what those would look like? I'm not talking about somebody who goes to church and pretends to be a Christian. I mean somebody who really is living it. Right? Someone who's really living it. And everything they do goes right back to their spiritual principles. Not culture, not opinions, not how they feel today, but a strict spiritual code that they live by from their understanding. Then you have people who live with the body as a background. I would say that body as a background and matter as a background is extremely close to animalistic, because even wolves and dogs and cats do that. And you got the emotions as a background. That's what children do. When psychic consciousness is focused by the instincts and passions with matter as a background, consciousness is transferred to the etheric matter, which is withdrawn from the dense vehicle in order that it may not act as the vehicle of passionate desires. Then are seen the manifestations of the lower magic, dangerous and evil in all its forms, degrading to the personality because its life is lived in relation to matter and not to spirit. Live all life with God for a background and measure your deeds against the span of heaven and assess them in relation to the cosmos. So shall your sin seem grievous in your sight and your errors very small. The seventh death. The seventh death. Janae Owo, peace. How you living? What? The seventh death is initiation. In the seventh death, consciousness is withdrawn from the personality and made one with the individuality. And then a man ever beholds the face of his Father, which is in heaven, even when he himself sojourns upon the earth. Thus it is that the initiate is not as other men. Initiation is a living death. A living death. Thank you, my gnosis. I appreciate that. My gnosis says, how do you walk and breathe at the same time? Caveman. I remember that. That's in reference to Mystical Kabbalah book reading. I was telling a story about how I used to walk to work and I'd be reading, right? I'd be reading Mystical Kabbalah, Demons of Magic. I'd be reading all sort of occult books. And people would drive by. I'm walking on the sidewalk, mind you. You know what I'm saying? And I can see when cars are coming and crossing and stuff like that. And every now and then, right? It wasn't like once or twice, but it was like a semi-regular thing. People would like roll down their window. How can you walk and read at the same time? Right, drive by and honking and, you better watch where you're going. I'm just thinking to myself, how can you walk and breathe at the same time? Troglodyte. You chew that fatback pork chop and bite small enough pieces so you don't choke yourself. But anyways, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Seventh death. Thus it is that the initiate is not as other men. Initiation is a living death. Those who desire the things of the senses and the pride of life use the words living death to explain the most terrible fate that can befall a man. But those who have knowledge know that the living death means the freedom of the spirit brought through to the planes of matter. It means the consciousness of the abiding presence in the midst of the consciousness of the senses. It means awareness of heaven while dwelling upon the earth. Therefore, the initiate goes to the living death, which is freedom, while still in the body. For death annuls the law of limitation, frees the potentialities of the spirit, gives sight to the blind, and power to the impotent. For death is life, and life is death. Every day I get closer and closer to really understanding that. Really understanding that. I mean, you got to think, what would enlightenment be like? All the things that you enjoy that make you feel good and you have to do, all of that would lose its importance. And it would be no more special than any other thing. To someone who is attached to the senses, that sounds like hell on earth. But honestly, I see it as a kind of freedom to release those things that previously held me. My baby mom was trying to get me to go out somewhere the other day. I think it was yesterday. Or was it today? I don't know. Woman, I ain't got nothing and no business with any of these people whatsoever. I got no business with none of these folks doing anything. I'm content to chill till I die. I done did it already. I said it already. Anyways, it means the consciousness of the abiding presence in the midst of the consciousness of the senses. Very key. It means awareness of heaven while dwelling upon the earth. Very key. Therefore, the initiate goes to the living death, which is freedom, while still in the body. For death annuls the law of limitation, frees the potentialities of the spirit, gives sight to the blind, and power to the impotent. that for which we longed vainly in life, we realize in death, for death is life and life is death. To the wider consciousness, the womb is a grave, and the grave is a womb. Think about how you've got to stretch your consciousness to understand that. The womb is a grave, and the grave is a womb. You got to really do some deep programming to understand that. From the cradle to the grave, a great man once said. From the grave to the cradle. To the wider consciousness, the womb is a grave, and the grave is a womb. The soul entering upon life bids farewell to his friends who mourn for him, and taking his courage in both hands, facing the great ordeal and submitting to suffering. Damn, imagine that. Like, imagine your last day and saying goodbye to everybody, ready to jump into this wheel of samsara, this manifest dimension of guaranteed suffering, and you got to come down here with a baby brain and start from level 1. Imagine everybody weeping and crying because they don't want you to go, but you got to go. Man, that might be worse than a funeral. Think about this, man. You don't have to go to Earth 1982, 1996, 2024. You don't have to do this. Yeah, well, I never got to taste that chocolate payday, so I'm going to have to manifest in 1980 so I can be old enough to get that chocolate payday. Think about what you're saying, man. You're going to go through abuse and heartbreak, cheating, taxes, having to clean up dog shit and cat shit and human shit. The soul entering upon life bids farewell to his friends who mourn for him, and taking his courage in both hands, facing the great ordeal and submitting to suffering, enters upon life. His first action in life is to draw breath. Damn. And the very next thing you do is take that breath. Why do you think them babies start crying like that? My gnosis says the shift leader telling you to drop some fries. Jeez, man. Here come Debo. Tuck your chains in. Take your chain off. I'm just gonna tuck mine in. Bullies. Ignorant bosses. Manipulators. Narcissists. And hell, sometimes getting caught up in wrong place, wrong time. But you wanted to taste that chocolate payday. Or that, I went to Atlanta, and my friend was telling me that there they have this Chick-fil-A that uses Hawaiian bread instead of regular bread. And I missed out. I don't remember what it was, but we missed it. And I never got to taste that Chick-fil-A with the sweet Hawaiian rolls for bread. But that's cool. That's not going to be something that's going to cause me to reincarnate. I'll tell you that. His first action in life is to draw a breath. His second action with that breath is to set up a cry of distress because he has entered upon the task of life with grief, and his aim in life is to make life bearable. But when he enters the grave, oh, and imagine this, you don't even land in America. So here you are in this third world country that don't even have appropriate hospitals. You come out with a lifelong terminal disease that you got to deal with from cradle to the grave. You got a swollen head, a big water balloon head. You got to stay in your bedridden for 30 years. Jeez. I think I'm going to say I learned my lesson this time around. But anyways, let's get to it. With that first breath, the second action with that breath is to set up a cry of distress because he has entered upon the task of life with grief, and his aim in life is to make life bearable. But when he enters the grave, he passes through the gateway into the wider life of consciousness. And when the initiate would pass to the wider life of consciousness, he passes through a gateway which symbolizes death. And by his death to the things of desire, he obtains freedom. And as one dead, he walks among men. You got to die to this world. You got to die to this world. Just like I told my baby mama, I ain't got no business with them people. My body might live in this city, but I damn sure don't. I have no more karma with none of y'all. Oh, you never get out of the house. By choice, sweetheart. By choice. All right. In the death in life, which is the freedom of the spirit and the bonds of the flesh, he transcends the law of limitation. Being dead, he is free. Being dead, he moves with power among those buried in the flesh. Ace in the place. Peace, peace. Metaphysical melodies, peace and greetings. Etheric, peace, peace. Drop some fries. Drop some fries. Being dead, he moves with power among those buried in the flesh. And they, seeing the light shining brightly through him, know that he is dead. For the light cannot shine through that consciousness, but when consciousness is discarnate, the light shines through. And if the discarnate consciousness is still manipulating its body, then that life shines through into the world of matter and illuminates man. But remember this and meditate upon it. An initiate is a dead man who manipulates his body that he may thereby serve those who cannot otherwise be approached. Hello. I understand it. Summary of the chapter. Number 1, neutralization of two movements. Number 2, the transmutation of force from one plane to the plane below. 3, death of the individualized consciousness and abstraction of the absolute essence of life in meditation. 4, sleep, the linking or teaching death, objective on its own plane. 5, death of the personality and of all its desires. 6. Trance. The body sleeps, but the soul is awake. 7. Initiation. Consciousness withdrawn from the personality and made one with the individuality. Hot potato. 28. Chapter 28. The law of impactation, or the transmission of action from one plane to another. The true method of impactation is but little known because it involves the inner principles of polarity. Impactation may be defined as the act of bringing a force of a subtler plane through to a denser plane upon the involutionary arc. This must be distinguished from degradation. Degradation is a similar act upon the evolutionary arc. We speak of the degradation or the sublimation of a force upon the evolutionary arc, and of impactation and disintegration upon the involutionary arc. An important concept concerning the dynamic standard of good and evil is contained in this distinction. Impactation, then, is the act of advancing a force in evolution by developing it upon the form aspect. Let me read that again. Impactation, then, is the act of advancing a force in evolution by developing it upon the form aspect. You must remember that the stream of evolving life issuing from the logos has to descend into matter in order to be organized. And I want you to think about this also. That very well may be the secret function of Prakriti, of the earth, right? Think about these rocks and these minerals, right? That take whatever the hell they're made of and compresses them over time to become a pure element. And here come these plants, right? These vegetable life forms that twist their roots into the soil and the dirt and start absorbing these nutrients and these vitamins and these minerals, and they start compacting them and organizing them and distributing them and turning them into something. And at the same time, it's taking in sunlight, straight up raw prana, and converting it into energy, right? It's doing all this terraforming and transforming, and here come the insects, right? And they're coming and they're nibbling and eating on these plants, and they too are taking in all the data that these plants have soaked up from the sun and soaked up from the rocks and the minerals and organized. And here come these bugs eating that life and organizing it in a different way, right? Because bugs eat and digest and transform those raw materials. And here come the birds swooping down and eating those bugs and taking that same data that those bugs have taken from the plants, which have taken from the sun and the minerals of the earth, right? And here come these mammals that come to eat the birds who took the same data and reorganized it in a different way, right? Here come these humans eating the mammals that have transferred and transformed data, right? Don't we do that? Isn't that this whole chain of command? The stuff that we eat, it's raw data that has been transformed and organized in a certain way, right? Carrots is raw data organized in a certain way. McDonald's cheeseburgers is raw data organized in a certain kind of way. If it's a real cow, then that cow ate the grass and whatever else that it ate, even if it was chemicals that were sprayed onto its plants. It digested that data, transformed it, repurposed it, organized it, and it went into its flesh, which we cook up and eat, and then we reorganize. And it doesn't matter if you're a vegan or a meat eater or whatever thing you are, you're still digesting data that was organized by some other living creature. That's the point I'm making, right? Alora, peace and greetings. Always wonderful to see you. So just like the physical plane, we eat food that has taken in data from the earth and reorganized it. And we're doing that same thing on the emotional plane too. As we drift through life feeling the feelings that we feel, these feelings that we feel are created from scenarios and situations and experiences that we've organized and compiled into memories. So we've got this whole database of memories that we've organized and filed away. You have the memories that you've created throughout your life, and guess what? There are subconscious memories that came along with the DNA, that came along with your genetics, that came along with your family bloodline. We already talked about race and these stereotypes of different cultures and races of people. All those are data memories that has been organized and assembled over time. And we continue to repurpose and terraform it. Look at what we're doing on the internet with memes, and we share these memes on social media. That's just data compiled and repurposed. Like, how many times has SpongeBob stood up from his chair and said, all right, I'm gonna head out? How many different ways has he done that? And he's still doing it. Look at how we just take stuff and repurpose it and reorganize it to communicate. And yes, we do that on the mental plane. Is not this book written in the English language, which is an assortment of these squiggly lines that are put together to form sounds and words and paragraphs? This whole business of Prakriti and Earth, Matrix, whatever this thing is, I think its secret function is simply to organize raw data into something more complex. And by the way, when the physical body dies, these memories and these emotions and these experiences that you've organized and filed away into a long history, it doesn't just disappear. It does not just disappear. You've created something. You've assembled something. The same way that when you eat that cow burger, or if you eat that salad or whatever it is that you eat, all that data that was assembled by that creature is now in you and a part of you, right? They say you are what you eat. Whatever it is that you consumed, that thing was created out of a compilation of organized data. You yourself are a larger compilation of organized data. And when this body stops, it will be consumed by the earth and the process will continue. But on a subtle plane, all the memory data, all the emotional data, all the thought form data, it's still there. And it will be a part of something else. Once again, you are not your body, you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. I digress. Impactation, then, is the act of advancing force in evolution by developing it upon the form aspect. You must remember that the stream of evolving life issuing from the logos has to descend into matter in order to be organized. And having developed form by its confinement in matter, it uses that form as a mold, or more strictly speaking, a framework for the subtler surrounds the dense. And when the framework of the dense is withdrawn, the subtle maintains the form it assumed, because the system of stresses then developed becomes a habit. The act of sublimation is to separate the dense from the gross, and the gross from the subtle. But the act of impactation is to lock two tangential forces of the subtle into a node of the dense. This, you will perceive, was the method of the creation of the atom. Let us make this clear by example. It is desired, let us suppose, to realize an abstract concept in concrete form. To do this, it must be realized that there are two sides to every question, and that each side has elements of good and bad, construction and destruction. Construction of the higher means destruction of the lower. All things die to the birth. The involutionary and the evolutionary aspect of every problem has to be envisaged. Perceiving then these two aspects, you will see that there are certain considerations which, if regarded alone, would lead you to proceed in the opposite direction to that which you contemplate. That is to say, you would abandon your original intention and turn back towards the center. Other considerations, however, induce you to press out towards the circumference. You will therefore always find, in every consideration, you are torn two ways. A unanimous decision is impossible, and it is a unanimous decision which is necessary in order to bring to birth upon a denser plane that which is conceived upon a subtler plane. It is therefore necessary that in such a matter you should have cooperation from an entity of a different type to your own, so that the consideration will be reversed, so that that aspect of yourself which would return to the center finds itself complemented by a similar aspect in the cooperator which would press outwards towards the circumference. Not two halves, but four quarters. Ooh. Then comes the figure of the exchange of partners, and you have two wholes instead of four halves. Ooh. One wholly positive and one wholly negative. One turns back toward the center, one sets out toward the circumference. They come into alignment, and the force can pass through them. Man. She getting her Terrence Howard on. She's getting her Terrence Howard on. Or I should say Terrence Howard is getting his Deion Fortune on, right? Check that out. Figure 21 and 22. Positive 1, negative 1. Negative 2, positive 2. And look at how she rotates it. Switch your partner around, do-si-do. Positive 1, positive 2. Negative 1, negative 2. The force intensifies all qualities. That which sets towards the center draws towards the center. That which sets towards the circumference draws towards the circumference. Then comes repolarization. Each of the two halves temporarily joined draws apart and affects repolarization within itself into a positive and negative aspect. Consciousness and subconsciousness, personality and individuality, and reforms itself. You then have four wholes on two planes. This is a subject which requires meditation. You know what image that brings to mind? That brings to mind a Rubik's Cube, right? Think about what she's saying here and consider like a four-faced Rubik's Cube. And on the top you have like you got your -1, and on the right you got your +1. On the bottom you got your +2. On the right you got your -2. And she says the force intensifies all qualities. That which sets towards the center draws towards the center. That which sets towards the circumference draws toward the circumference. So there's the contracting force and the expanding force, right? And that's affecting those 4 parts. She says then comes repolarization. Each of the 2 halves temporarily joined draws apart, right? Because 2 are going towards the center and 2 are going to the outside, regardless of what number they are. Each of the 2 halves temporarily joined draws apart and affects repolarization within itself into a positive and negative aspect, consciousness and subconsciousness. So look, when it comes to you, there's a part of you zooming towards the outside and there's a part of you zooming towards the inside. We talk about our objective reality and our subjective reality, don't we? Speaking of zooming to the outside. Consciousness and subconsciousness, personality and individuality, and reforms itself. You then have 4 holes on 2 planes. This is a subject which requires meditation. It cannot be comprehended without a key. Have you realized the import of that which has been given? We have given you the lock, but the key cannot be given you so freely. The key must not be written down. Always with the teasing of wisdom. But that's what makes the dance so sweet. The key must not be written down. The drawing apart of that which inclines toward the center from that which inclines toward the circumference explains many things. Firstly, the gulf between personality and individuality and heredity. That which is projected into the denser, being formed from the framework of the subtler, retains the stress habit of its original. Equally, when the process is not that of the normal advance of life, but a special operation undertaken at the bidding of the will, not the desires, that which is impacted is a reflection of the combined nature of the impactors. The impactors, therefore, although they separate according to the law of reaction and the law of magnetism, that like repels like, are permanently linked by means of the common bond to that which they have created. What was that image? Page 24. Hexagram, 6-pointed star. That's figure 24. The symbol is that of the inverted A, in which the 2 converging bars represent the creators. The crossbar, the line of demarcation between the planes, and the lower incomplete triangle, the created. The crossbar is known as the bar of impactation, and you will see its vital significance in all practical operations based upon this principle. Peace, Anna Molly. Great to see you. The bar of impactation must be included in the projected aspect in order to complete it and make of it a triangle the simplest form of closed figure. The impactors can then detach themselves at the line of demarcation and be free to function as independent units upon their own plane. But the system of magnetic stresses remains behind, attached to the bar of impactation, which forms the upper line of the triangle. And when the triangle seeks to cross the bar and develop into the mighty alpha, it follows the lines already laid down. Now, these lines, being projections into subtle matter of the basic angle of the triangle, enable consciousness of the type of the impactors to contact it. Hereby, you see the way in which the master approaches the pupil. There are two kinds of birth. Firstly, that which is in the ordinary course of nature, and the incarnation of a consciousness of a loftier grade than that which requires manifestation in matter for its development. Oh, time for a fresh splash of this Fruity Pebbles essential oil. I wonder how many Fruity Pebbles they have to squeeze to get the smell out. Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust. All right. Back to it. So, again, there are two kinds of birth. Firstly, that which is in the ordinary course of nature, and the incarnation of a consciousness of a loftier grade than that which requires manifestation in matter for its development. In the latter case, the soul impacts itself with the assistance of another of a similar grade. The one which desires to manifest presses toward the circumference, going to the outside, right? We're expanding, right? And its partner in impactation returns towards the center. But these two maintain contact by the prolongation of the angles, right? Think about that Star of David shape, or in her, what she said at least, an A and an inverted A. That Freemason sigil, right? And notice, as one A moves outward and expands, and the other upside down A, or the V, right? TRAV, the V goes inward and the A goes outward. They keep in contact with each other by their angles. That's interesting. Hold on, just in case you didn't get a visual of that. Look, right? Because like what she marked right there, that's not really there. So even if this downward triangle is going into the center, and even if it's shrinking, and this triangle is going outward to the edge of the universe, even if it's expanding, it's going to keep in contact by where those lines meet. In fact, as long as this angle is the same, it's always going to meet in the same place. Or I should say, it's a better way to say that. They don't meet in the same place, but the angle of how they meet is going to be the same. Like, see this shape, but see this down triangle moving down and that up triangle moving up, right? It's expanding and stretching, but it stays locked in. Dimensional legend says 60 degrees in each corner. Exactly. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. As above, so below, as within, so without, right? So look, the one which desires to manifest presses towards the circumference, and its partner in impactation returns towards the center. But these two maintain contact by the prolongation of the angles. And when consciousness is raised, you get the symbol of the six-pointed star, which is the symbol of initiation. Ooh. Ooh. This explains the phenomena of the four quarters instead of two halves. It explains the phenomena of the Christ and the Jesus, and of all greater and lesser selves. Notice how she said Christ and Jesus. Just want to make sure you didn't glaze over that. There are, no doubt, many points in the foregoing remarks on which you will meditate before you will receive their significance. One for the higher, one for the lower. One for the exoteric, one for the esoteric, one for the microcosm, one for the macrocosm, one for the objective reality, one for the subjective reality. The act of impactation is based upon the use of the laws of the attraction of the center and the attraction of the circumference and the use of polarity. And in all elaborations of the concepts of polarity, the law of impactation comes into function because polarity gives rise to impactation. And impactation depends on polarity, wherein union takes place horizontally and fissure takes place vertically. Can you feel love tonight? Let's go about one more and see where we are. Ooh, yeah, that's another good one, Framestar Films. Thanks for pointing that out. In the four quarters, the flaming pentagrams above us and below is the six-rayed star. Four quarters and the six-pointed star. These symbols, like you, and see with your building of library of correspondences, take this, not even these words and this information, but take what you visualized and thought about and felt and add that to your library of correspondences, to 4 and to 6, to the six-pointed star, to the cross, and understand that the cross, when it's unfolded, or I should say when the six-pointed star is made into a solid shape, it's a cube. When that cube is unfolded, it makes a cross. 4 elements, 6 angles. All right. Let's do this one and see how we fare. Hey, Johnny. Chapter 29. The law of the aspects of force or polarity. Just as it was impossible to consider the law of impactation without considering the law of polarity, so it is impossible to consider the law of polarity without considering the law of attraction of the center and the attraction of the circumference. Because polarity has its basis in these two laws. It is according to whether the attraction be towards the center or the circumference that the negative or positive aspect of force are observed. But Trav, how do I know if a force is being pulled towards the center or pulled out towards the circumference? Well, allow me to remind you of what you said in the first few chapters about the ring cosmos and what direction it pulls, and the ring chaos and what direction it pulls. And what type of patterns determine which direction are being pulled in. The attraction towards the center gives the negative, and the attraction toward the circumference, the positive aspect. And it is those two in polarity that produce the circulation of force. You see the prototype of which this is the correspondence and the positive and negative aspects of the cosmic rays. The glyph of this is contained in the caduceus of Mercury. There you see the black and white serpents of positive and negative functions twined from side to side of the staff. Taken in its mundane aspect, the staff represents the ray, and the black and white serpents, the positive and negative aspects of the life wave. Figure 26. Caduceus. And then you see the 6-pointed star there in the center. And look at where it's situated, and also think about the chakra points. And I want you to also think about the yantra or the sigil for the heart chakra. What does the yantra or the sigil look like for the heart chakra? A glyph needs generally for its understanding the superimposition of another glyph belonging to the next plane. Sheesh. Thus representing a practical application of the law of impactation. Place upon the glyph of Mercury, otherwise Hermes, lord of the mind, the glyph of Orpheus, lord of the elementals. Place the musical scale upon the staff of wisdom, and you will see the places marked off on the staff. Then place the inverted A with its basal angle upon whatever plane you wish to consider, and you will see the implication of the prolongation of the angle. You will then perceive that which appears as a unity upon one plane is prolonged into a duality upon the subtler planes. Take the 2 points of your duality, reduce them a plane, according to the law of correspondences, taking these 2 lower points as the basal angles of the upper A, and you can circumscribe your hexagon. You will then see that the highest angle of your hexagon is in exact correspondence with the lowest angle, and that the 2 side rays upon each side may be connected by lines representing their respective affinities. This gives you the clue to the horizontal and vertical polarity, which is the cross of regeneration. Polarity, according to the horizontal account, is horizontal, 2 of a kind, opposite in type. Polarity, according to the esoteric concept, is vertical and has its clue in correspondence. Place the cross on the hexagon and the hexagon on the caduceus, and you will see the significance. Let the basal point of the 6-pointed star rest upon the densest plane under consideration. Let each pair of lateral points rest upon a plane. And let the transverse bar of the cross be the bar of impactation. You will then see the manner in which any given set of forces will work. This is a method of divination. Now, in considering the caduceus, which is the symbol of polarity upon the planes, note that the serpent, as it passes from side to side of the staff, goes from the positive to the negative side of the ray. This will teach you that a force which is positive upon one plane will be negative upon the plane above. Whether you are considering the emanations of the zodiac or the levels of consciousness, this is equally true. 1111. Thank you, Anamali. 1111. Still awake? You got a Sylvia up? You watch a movie? Or do you want to play that game? I tried to make a deal with my son, right? He doesn't like scary movies, but I really want to watch one with him. So there's this new game. What's that game called?
Multiverse.
Well, maybe it's not new, but it's called Multiverses. And it's like a fighting style game with all the WB characters on it. With, your Bugs Bunny and your Tom and Jerry and your Batman characters and Scooby-Doo characters and all that good stuff. And they have Jason on there, apparently. So I told him, all right, if you want, I'll download this game and we'll play it. But you have to watch Jason with me. And he was all about it. But I don't think he wants to watch Jason now. I won't make him watch it. Oh. You don't come with it? I don't think he wants to watch Jason now. I won't make him watch it.
The game was shut down for 3 or 2 years.
Alright, let's get back to it. Now, in considering the caduceus, which is the symbol of polarity upon the planes, note that the serpent, as it passes from side to side of the staff, goes from the positive to the negative side of the ray. This will teach you that a force which is positive upon one plane will be negative upon the plane above. Dion Fortune talks about this in almost all of her books that I've read. She mentions it at least once. You definitely heard this in Mystical Kabbalah. Multiple times. And Circuit of Force. But now she's telling you where that comes from. This will teach you that a force which is positive upon one plane will be negative upon the plane above. Whether you are considering the emanations of the zodiac or the levels of consciousness, this is equally true. Polarity is always inverted, plane by plane. You hear that? Polarity is always inverted, plane by plane. This will give you a further clue to the significance of the 4 quarters. If you raise consciousness, you change polarity. Uh-oh. If you raise consciousness, you change polarity. Interesting, huh? Interesting. Jay Baldhill says, image of a checkerboard comes to mind. So we got the 6-pointed star, we got the checkerboard floors. Somebody knows a little something, right? Whenever union takes place between 2 aspects upon a plane, they develop a similar magnetism, and becoming repellent thereby, they are forced apart. If therefore contact is made upon but a single plane, repulsion and estrangement follows. But if contact takes place upon more than one plane, alternation of magnetism is set up, and a circuit of the type of a figure 8 is built. 4 quarters again. This holds good whether of men or of movements. Polarity upon the planes always exists as 4 quarters. This is the clue to much. You will have perceived in the foregoing teachings certain applications of the abstract to the concrete, which it is not expedient should be concreted even in the abstract. Taking these as your basis, proceed further. You will have perceived in the foregoing teachings certain applications of the abstract to the concrete, which it is not expedient should be concerned. You will have perceived in the foregoing teachings certain applications of the abstract to the concrete, which it is not expedient should be concreted even in the abstract. Taking these as your basis, proceed further. Etheric says, oh wow, I drew a 6-pointed star with an infinity symbol on it a while ago. Nice. Listen guys, one thing that I know for sure is that when you're tapped into the current of the particular energy, whatever it may be, in this case we're dealing with what's being taught in this book, when you're tapped into that current, you will begin receiving images ahead of time. If visualization with imagery is your strong point. If visualization with audio is your strong point, you will have heard something and will hear something that triggers deja vu. And if kinesthetics is your strong point, if you're tapped into this current, you're going to feel something, and then you're going to feel it again, and it's going to be like deja vu, right? thing I know for sure, when you're actually doing the work and you're actually tapped into a current, you're going to see things, hear things, or feel things before it's mentioned in the book, before I talk about it, or there's going to be shared deja vu when you're tapped into the current. I've seen it way too many times of working with groups of you guys and girls over the years. When somebody's really tapped in, they start receiving information before it's actually, presented. So this is one of the reasons why it's so important to be open to your intuition and to not alter what you receive. Sometimes you're receiving something that you haven't seen yet with your conscious mind, right? Imagine seeing that six-pointed star with a infinity symbol in it and being like, nah, this must have been something else, right? Listen, and what I'm saying is true, because even in the Bible it talks about men are given certain gifts, and these gifts correspond with each other. If someone is speaking tongues, guess what? There's somebody nearby who can interpret tongues. So what that means is you're not just out here talking tongues for no reason. You're not just doing that for no reason. You're doing that because you're receiving a positive frequency, and there's someone around with that can interpret the negative aspect of that frequency. And the two of you come together and you're able to interpret it, to translate it, right? So if you're receiving something, learn how to follow your intuition instead of forcing it to be edited. Right? And you know what I'm talking about if this has happened to you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you've been following my channel, this ain't the first time at all. Shit, it happens with me. Framestar Films, don't even worry about that one. All right, let's keep going. Right? All right, so where are we? When one desires to project a manifestation from a subtler plane to a denser plane on the involutionary arc, it summons to its assistance another, and the two detach and project each a part of their substance. Viewed from the denser plane, the projection appears as one. Viewed from the subtler plane, the projection appears as it really is, a projection. Whenever the one is considered, it is necessary for its understanding to project it into the subtler planes until it reveals the two. For of the dual nature it would partake, and it is this duality of nature which is the clue to so much in both men and things. Therefore, remember that when dealing with any form, one can always be resolved into two. And for a production of a new object, two are always essential. And it is upon this subtle action and reaction and balance of force that ultimate issues depend. When one desires to project a manifestation from a subtler plane to a denser plane on the involutionary arc, it summons to its assistance another, and the two detach and project each a part of their substance. Viewed from the denser plane, the projection appears as one. Viewed from the subtler plane, the projection appears as it really is, a projection. Whenever the one is considered, and it is necessary for its understanding to project it into the subtler planes until it reveals the two. For of the dual nature it would partake, and it is this duality of nature which is the clue to so much in both men and things. Therefore, remember that when dealing with any form, one can always be resolved into two. And for a production of a new object, two are always essential. And it is upon this subtle action and reaction and balance of force that ultimate issues depend. For some reason, this is making me think of servitors working with entities. And that could also be because of what she mentioned earlier about working with the higher and the lower at the same time. Thought will enable you to perceive that you have herein an explanation of the basis of physical generation. You have also the explanation of the creation of familiars, or artificial elementals, which, though abused, have their uses. Cool. I called it, and I didn't even read ahead. See, that's what I mean. When you get these intuitions, don't edit them. Allow them to come out as they are. And just hold on to it. You don't have to interpret it. Let it clarify itself. I love it when that happens. All right. It is possible, however, to create and project a thought form without the interposition of a second entity by polarizing the personality and the individuality. Normally, if you read correctly the glyph of Hermes, you will perceive that the polarity of the 7 bodies is alternating and opposite. If you affect the repolarization so that the whole personality should be negative and the whole individuality positive, you affect the condition in which creation of minor forms is possible within the entity. These, however, cannot sustain any independent life, but have to be fed and maintained by their parent. This polarization is affected by neutralizing the characteristic activity of each body of the personality and intensifying the activities of each body of the individuality so that all inhibitions are removed. And this produces a state of instability and therefore cannot be sustained for long. You will perceive that here you have certain important clues to the practice of that which induces that which is not in that which thinks it is, but is not. You will perceive that here you have certain important clues to the practice of that which induces that which is not in that which thinks it is, but is not. Sheesh. I had to read that about 4 times. The opposite process in which you have the inhibition of the individuality and the intensification of the personality produces a certain type of mundane genius which burns brightly to its own destruction. Aww. You will perceive then that there is the cooperation of the two for the production of the third and the repolarization of the two aspects of the entity for the projection of an expression. There is also another aspect upon group form. The consciousness of a group is an entity of a negative or female type. It requires to be stimulated by a positive force before it can become creative. That which functions on a subtler plane is positive in relation to that which functions on a denser plane. Should a consciousness conceive the aims of a group on a higher plane than that on which the group conceives them, it becomes positive towards that group and thereby can fertilize it. When fertilization of a group occurs, each of the individuals of that group becomes pregnant with a new life and brings creative work to birth upon the physical plane. They will then have conceived that which the group leader has begotten and will then be upon the same plane as the leader. Man, are y'all hearing that? Take a minute to think about that. Take a minute to think about that paragraph. I don't even know where to start to highlight. The group itself would be feminine, right? And the one who fertilizes that group would be masculine. But don't stop there. Take it one more step higher. We talking about some cosmic chess. We talk about some cosmic chess. Shoot. That's all right if you didn't get it. That's fine. But if you did, anyways, let's keep going. Having conceived the same ideal, they will then be of the same polarity as the leader. And it will no longer be possible for him to bring a creative stimulus to that group. This will explain to you the process of fluorescence and degeneration which groups undergo. But periods of quiescence are not of necessity death. You will observe that throughout all manifested life, the cooperation of two factors is essential for all form building. Force, however, works as a unit because its polarity is in the logos. Oh, look at that. Law of the attraction of outer space. I sleep peacefully at night, understanding that while my conscious mind may be having quite a time processing these words, my subconscious mind understands it immediately. As soon as these words begin to create images in my mind, the subconscious mind is like, yep, I got it. Meanwhile, the conscious mind is like, I'm still trying to figure out that last sentence. Go back. Don't worry about that. You can expect the conscious mind is going to scramble and scrape. Oh, but the subconscious mind is faster than your conscious mind. It has a deeper library to access from. You got this. It's interesting because on that last section where she talked about the group, right, and that brought so many things to mind for me. But I was also thinking about how the Bible, it in Revelations, it considers the church as the bride of Christ. Do y'all remember that? Anyone who's a Christian or used to be a Christian? Christians talk about the church being the bride, right? The group is the feminine entity, right? The group is a feminine entity, and it is fertilized by the masculine directing entity. In this case, it is Christ, right? And this is why the pastor was traditionally male and led the congregation, right? Being the Christ of that church, right? But check this out now. It gets deeper. This is what I was saying. Don't stop there, right? Don't stop there. Yes, the church is feminine. The group is a feminine entity. And the leader, the one who leads the group, is a masculine entity, but it doesn't stop there. That's why I was saying expand, right? Look at this now. Because if the members of the church, the individuals, are the masculine entity, and the masculine belongs to the church, now we're talking about the son and the mama, aren't we? Yeah. There's a reason why in the ancient cultures you see mother and son. Daddy is invisible. There's a reason for that. Because when son grows up, son fertilizes mama and ascends. The process continues, it repeats. So on the lower level, the members in the church are the masculine aspect. The church itself is the feminine aspect, the mama. Now the leader, the Christ, is the masculine aspect. Now she was saying that that's what determines what happens. Now guess what? Now it gets deeper because that Christ belongs to another mama. Uh-oh. That Christ belongs to another mama. Right? The secret society behind the secret society. Some groups have been, what's the word? Well, there's a word for when a member of another group infiltrates. And now this group is secretly a member of another group because the leader belongs to another mama. A mama who's being fertilized by an even higher masculine entity. And the process continues. It continues beyond what you can see. In the same way that the church members can't see past the church itself. Right? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. That's why I say it's chess. It's cosmic chess. Think about America as a country itself. That's a feminine thing. America is a female. And it's being led by the president, right? The representative, the masculine. But guess what? He belongs to a party, don't he? He belongs to a group itself, don't he? And that group is being led by a masculine force. And that masculine force belongs to another group. And it goes so far that you can only see what's in your pay grade. Man, that's exciting, isn't it? Nothing here is what you think it is. So don't waste your time worrying about shit that don't even concern you. That's the point. Don't even waste your time. I don't care. Right? I care about what I need to understand. All the conspiracy theory stuff is interesting. It's cool. Or it used to be when I was bored and needed something to do. But yeah, man. Most people are playing tic-tac-toe. Not even checkers. And some folks are playing chess. 3D chess at that. Well, the rest of these knuckleheads playing tic-tac-toe. Playing hangman. Just look at the mainstream, you know what I'm saying? And look at a lot of the mainstream concerns. And most of them are emotionally charged. Like, understand, those are just games to keep people occupied. Most of the stuff that's put out there for the general public and the masses to be consumed with, that stuff don't even really matter. That's just like stuff to keep people engaged and keep them going about their day. Like most of the stuff that's given to you as something to worry about or be concerned about, it has nothing to do with you. But people have this tendency to like wrap their personality around these causes and these events and these things. The truth of the matter is, all that stuff is orchestrated by somebody else playing a different game. So who's really leading? Is it the son or is it the mother? Well, guess what? It's all relative. It depends on where you are. Useful and appropriate. Okay, so we have stretched our minds. We have got some exercise, some reps in. Plenty of things for your subconscious mind to digest tonight as you go to sleep. And you think about all the things that you think about. Know that your feminine aspect, known as the unconscious, is going to take all the seeds that she's gathered up from this knowledge. She's going to assemble them in the way that she knows best. Just like the womb takes in these seeds and organizes and assembles. Just like plants take up nutrients from the earth, bugs eat the plants, and birds eat the bugs, and animals eat the birds, and people eat the animals. Just like we take in information and we reassemble it. You don't tell your body how to digest its food. It don't matter what you eat. You can eat pickled pig's feet and chitlins and Rocky Mountain oysters. Your body knows what to do with all of that. It knows how to assemble all of that, and depending on who you are, she'll make the best use out of it possible. Some cultures have a cuisine that'll kill you with your American diet. Literally. Because their bodies understand how to break down and reassemble, take what's useful and appropriate, discard the rest. And your unconscious mind knows exactly what to do with this information. Knows exactly what to do with this information. Trust that process. Trust that process. All right. Hope y'all have fun. Try your best to desexualize some of that thought process, because the world and our culture is doing its best to overcharge you and to corrupt your process, your pattern-based recognition system. There's a time and place for everything. Nothing is 24/7 like that. Control thyself. So you can see clearly. The worst kind of slave is the slave that don't even know he's a slave. Peace, rain, water. Peace, Wayne M. Peace, Fat Tony. Welcome, welcome. All right, what a night. Good to be back. I took a little break, like I said, but I'm in there like swimwear. Wow, I just got what that saying means. All these years, it just now hit me. All right, so that was it. We're going to pick back up on chapter 30 in a week. As J. Ball Hale said, it's only about 10 pages left. That's good news. That's good news. Stop fighting with yourself. I hope you've been doing your shadow work. I hope that you've learned to appreciate, accept, and integrate the parts of you that are what they are. And I hope that you've learned to identify with the part of you that is above and beyond this animal, above and beyond the memories, above and beyond the beliefs and the habit patterns. I hope that you've learned to identify yourself with something above and beyond what these other folks are out here talking about. Not that you need to attach to anything, but understand that what you are cannot be squeezed down into an ape-made box. Don't cheat yourself, treat yourself, as the pimp says. Hope you're doing your shadow work. I hope you're getting your practice in. Hope you're doing your cyclomancy or whatever it is that you're doing. I hope that you're doing it, being serious, committing, right? Get them reps in. Stay consistent. Stay consistent. Now is the time. Now is the time. Still up, Anna? All right. So my son wants to use the TV so he can play his game with me. And I will be seeing you all next time. Go back over what we read. See if you get any personalized downloads. And I'll catch you on the flip. Good stuff. Good stuff. Chapter 30. This book has been something else, hasn't it? Honestly, I don't know if we can top this one. I'm just gonna keep it real. I don't know if we can top this one. And if they ain't talking on this level, shoot, they might still be dealing with some kindergartner stuff. All right, y'all. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention. And it is my expectation that this was a reciprocal relationship, right? You came here and you got what you were looking for, hopefully more. Peace to everybody. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you all. Peace. And nobody told me what that animal was, that crustacean, ancient, fossilized. What is that creature? It's like in a spiral shell, but it's got like tentacles. I gotta look that up. Nobody was my science nerd today. I did not get an answer. I need to know what that prehistoric water creature was. Oh, see, animal, it says trilobite. I'm pretty sure it was the trilobite. Yeah, trilobite. It had the shell and it had the tentacles. Come on, Google. Show me a picture. Gosh. Maybe I'm thinking of a Pokemon, I guess. But I'm seeing something that had like a spiral shell and it had like little tentacles coming out. Maybe that is just a Pokemon. It's not Kabuto. It's the other one. There it is. There it is. I'm seeing a picture of it. What's your name, Buckaroo? No, it's not a horseshoe crab. It has a spiral shell. And it's got tentacles. I'm sure it was based on a real creature because I know I've seen like a real picture of it. Or an artist's rendition, I should say. Nautilus. That's what it is. That's what it is. I can recognize it from the name. Nautilus. Yes. Yeah, that's got to be it. I'm pulling that up on Googly. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess the ammonite is actually the ammonite might be more of what I was thinking of. Imagine what kind of data those creatures have. Yeah, the ammonoids are extinct. The nautilus is extant, whatever that means. Okay, time to go. Time to go. Thank you. I knew that somebody would help me figure it out. I kind of knew that it would be you, Anamali. Usually you answer the science questions. All right, y'all. Have a good night. May you dream of ammonites and they bring you ancient information. What a strange looking creature. Just looking at it is making me think stuff. All right, let me get out of here. Y'all have a good night. Peace, peace.